Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Janet Williams, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives on the town's website. It's being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. So, to all participants, whether you're attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you've been recognized by the chair. And when recognized, please remember to identify yourself for the record. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off until you've been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. And so that we have a record of a quorum attending today, I'll now ask each member of the commission to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Karen Lattin.
Present.
Who's attending remotely today. Bob Rawls.
Present.
Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Thank you. You're also remote today. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Maserbsey. Not present today. Okay, and I'm here, so we have established that we have a quorum. Before we begin the agenda, I don't believe there are any announcements about, oh yes, there are. There's one announcement about a request for a continuance for today. So Assistant Conservation Agent Paul Whiteman is sitting in today for Nikki Smith. Paul, can you let us know which one that is?
Yes, Madam Chairman. 1 second.
Actually, I just found it. I have a note here written about it.
I can read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
The following have submitted an application for a notice of intent. Location 498 and 500 Shore Road. The applicants are 498 Shore Road LLC and 500 Revocable Trust for Stephen A. and Stacy A. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Byerton, map 16G, parcel 3D-A5 and 3E-A6, DEP number 103645. The project is for proposed construction and maintain a beach access and stairway, a rinse station, a storage locker, and restore previously approved mitigation and a coastal bank stabilization. The project will be continued to 9/13.
Okay, thank you. So if anyone's here or online for 498 and 500 Shore Road, that'll be continued to next week, September 13th, and we'll vote on that when we get to it on the agenda. So with that, Paul, can you now lead us through the agenda, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. The following applicants have requested order of conditions. The project location is 70 Watch Hill Way. The applicants are Sheila J. Clancy, map 17, parcel C-9. The DEP number is SE103644, and the proposed project is for an ecological restoration.
Okay, so thank you, Paul. The draft order of conditions has been posted on the town website and in the Dropbox for commissioners to access. It has been reviewed by everybody, but haven't heard comments from everyone, so we'll have an opportunity for commissioners to suggest any final edits or changes. And we have someone here representing the project.
Yeah, good afternoon. Lauren Taylor with Crawford Land Management. I think the only thing that we were waiting for with this one at the last hearing was the the DMS letter and then the state permit number. Those have both been received.
Yep.
I think Steph from our office has sent it to you, so if you've received that, great. If not, let me know and I can pass that wherever it needs to go.
Okay, thank you. We have included both of the National Heritage letter, and we put in the DEP assigned number. I'm just doing a final edit. Let me check with commissioners here in the room whether anybody has other Edits, questions, comments?
Maybe I do.
Go for it.
Yeah, I wasn't here last hearing, but I did watch, out of practice. I watched the hearing, I was not here, but I believe this is the project where there are 3 trees in the coastal bank that are coming out?
That's correct, yep.
That's correct, and they're,
Yes, 3.
and the reason, just to reiterate what the reasoning is,
Right, so there's 2 small sapling-sized pitch pines on the bank that are proposed for removal just because pitch pines are a little bit more susceptible to becoming wind-thrown. And the concern with that is that if they become uplifted, it's going to end up taking out restoration plantings that are put in or fall on other ones. So it's more about preserving the restoration area in that sense. And then there's the black cherry on the bank, and that's not proposed for removal at this time. We're suggesting that when we're doing restoration work, a certified arborist would go in there and look at the structure of the tree and determine if it's structurally stable or not. And if it's not, then we would propose to remove it. And that's something that we would discuss with the agent. But we're not actually proposing to remove it yet. We're just going to assess its structure once we're able to get in there and look at it a little bit better.
okay, all right, thanks. So the primary concern is that they might disrupt the bank if they were to topple over?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else have anything? Anybody on the platform or on the phone have any other comments or questions about this? All right, then. Karen, since you're remote, we're relieving you of motion-making duty today, and Bob's going to step back into his familiar old role. So I'll ask you to.
Thank you.
I got a comment.
Okay, let's do that
Janet,
first.
Beforehand.
Yep.
On the special conditions, special condition number 4, the existing invasive vegetation growing adjacent to the round patio shall be removed. I'd like to add that the invasive vegetation to the south within the ornamental grass be removed as well. So maybe we can just add to that sentence.
To the south, how else? Where is
Yeah.
it?
The,
I remember talking about it at the hearing,
yes,
and Jen,
the
yeah.
Japanese knotweed to the south,
Oh,
with
it's knotweed, right?
growing within the ornamental grass
Okay, that's it.
shall be removed. That's all, thank you.
Okay. If I could spell ornamental in this, I'd be in good shape. Okay.
Are the trees being replaced?
No, because the existence of the trees, on the coastal bank is the issue,
They're not being replaced anywhere on the property.
by a lot of shrubs.
So, I just want to have an internal conversation real quickly. So, well, with you too, there's no place to put replacement trees on the property?
They would be more suitable at the top of the bank, just because of that susceptibility to the incoming wind thrown and disturbing the restoration plantings. With our original plans, we didn't propose any replacement trees at the top of the bank just because the only 2 that we were taking out were small sapling-sized ones. So, and we're proposing to replace that with a maritime shrubland on the bank. So we don't have any trees proposed for replacement at this time, but it's something that we could discuss.
I only raise it because, in similar situations, we have to offer reasoning, as long as we feel like we have reasoning as a commission as to why we're not requiring the 1-to-1 replacement. Then that's one thing, but I just didn't hear any discussion of it, other than the fact, so the feeling is there's enough biomass in the shrubbery to compensate for the removal of the trees.
Does understory replace
It-
overstory?
Well, if it's biomass for biomass, it can, although it functions differently. We most likely would have gone into it in more detail had you been here.
Most likely, yeah. Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we close the hearing and approve the order of conditions with the changes noted for 70 Watch Hill Way.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's approved. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, moving on.
Moving on. Next on the agenda, Madam Chair, is the following applicant has submitted an administrative review application to remove 6 trees. The applicant is Bryant Bush, map 12K, parcel 25HC86. The location of the project is 105 Middle Road. I don't know if Brian is on.
You can sit at the table there or stand at the podium, your choice.
Oh, there he is.
He's here, he's in the room. Yep,
Okay.
just need you to identify yourself for the record before you start.
Good afternoon.
And push your button, yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now? My name is Brian Bush. I filed the administrative review back in June. I believe you guys have the submission that I submitted. Mr. Del Vecchio came out yesterday to visit the site, showed him what I'm proposing. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. The question that comes up immediately is regarding is identified as tree number 1.
Yes.
And it's not clear from the photograph that it's dead or near dead. So can you please explain the status of that tree?
So tree number 1, they're not labeled, but there's 2 trees if you look at that picture. One where the kind of horizontal line of the arrow is, and then one right where the R and E, first ER in the tree number 1. Those 2 trees are healthy. There are 3 trees that are very similar in size that are right next to one another. It's hard to tell from this picture, but that first tree is really not going to make it, I believe. In the last year and a half or 2, it's been losing branches, and its health is not what the other 2 are. Given that I'm trying to bring a tree person in, I think I'm just trying to save the steps of another mobilization to take down that tree and take it down with the, with the others that I proposed.
And what kind of tree is it?
It's a scrub pine.
Pitch pine, yeah. Is it the one, so on your site map, you have the tree's location but not identified. Is it the tree that's by itself over on the?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because the other 5 are in a much more
together.
densely wooded
Correct.
area. Okay, let me ask Bob what you view is about tree number 1.
Yeah, I went to do the site visit yesterday, and then Brian was home, and he showed me the different trees. That first tree is in decline. It looks pretty sparse, and the needles are turning color. And I recommend that it be removed. It is kind of leaning towards the yard, bending that way, so I think it's somewhat a hazard at this point, in the near future. And then the other trees in the back, I noticed were leaning over the red maple. Brian mentioned that Teresa Sprague did a restoration planting of the adjacent wetland, and she planted red maple along with a red maple on the other side of the property, framing that wetland, but they're overhanging that wetland, and they are leaning again towards that red maple, and they're kind of over the red maple, so they would stunt the growth of that red maple in time, I feel.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, even I can tell that they look as if they have crossed the line or just about to, and there's a lot of leaning going on. When was that planting done? When was the?
2013.
Okay. Okay. So the five in the back, it's a pretty heavily wooded area, and it doesn't look like it's all that easy to access them.
It's not.
So why are they, oh, so now I guess they're coming out in order to protect the red maple and the other
Well,
plantings around the wet?
If there's one picture there, it's the third photo. There's no marking on the tree.
Uh-huh.
But that tree is actually down. You see it's got a kind of V-shaped and it's running at like a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
That's being supported by two of the trees that I'm proposing to take down. And it was actually a neighbor who alerted me to the fact that that tree had come down that, you know, got me a little motivated on this. It's pretty dense back there, but there, if I take the trees down that I proposed, there'll still be quite a few sizable trees, as well as the red maple that was planted to, you know, that would grow much better. The reason these trees are all leaning, I believe, is because they're shaded completely on one side by taller trees. And one has come down, one's already dead, which is the single tree number 6 that I showed. So I really think it's inevitable that the other trees that I propose are going the same route.
Okay, is that your assessment as well, Bob?
Yeah,
That they're-
and Brian did offer to, sorry. Brian did offer to plant other trees, and I would like maybe make the recommendation too that some of the porcelain berry on the plantings that Teresa planted initially be removed, just to protect those plants in there.
What's that called, porcelain berry?
Porcelain berry, it's a vine, it's spreading, as you could tell, it was spreading out everywhere.
It'll be easy to recognize this time of year as it develops those bright, dark purple, bluish color berries.
Right,
And you'll see the vine and it's surrounding and starting to choke things. And
yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And I had
is
told
there any
Bob,
particular trick or process to be followed for porcelain berry?
No, I mean, you just have to go in there and physically remove it. And as I mentioned out in the field, maybe create some kind of a path where you can mow. I don't know if that's possible or not.
yeah,
Just you know, to keep that invasive vegetation from overspreading that area. It's a beautiful wetland planting or wetland with the cattails. So anything you can do to kind of protect that area would be beneficial.
yeah, I agree. One of the things I explained to Bob when he came out was that the area that's subject to flooding there that's in question is, when I did the work with Blue Flax back in 2013, I don't own that whole resource area. There are 3 other people who do. So, and their houses are much further away, and there's a lot of kind of dense woods between them. So it was pretty apparent that unless you could clean that up to keep all the invasives out, it wouldn't be fruitful if everybody didn't agree to do that at the same time. But I'm happy to do what I can. It really is a pretty area and, you know, a good resource area.
Yeah, it would be a shame to let all those, the plants that were installed there be destroyed by
Yeah.
invasives.
Yeah.
So,
And then,
this is an administrative review, so we can't, we can put in, I'm advised by the agent that we can put in some conditions.
Yeah,
So the removal of the porcelain berry will be in there.
yeah.
So let's talk about the tree replacements. How many are you proposing to replace? And
Well, actually, after talking to Bob, I thought maybe 2. So if you look at the plan, the first, the actual sketch of the site plan, there's on the right, the fence that's shown there, on the front right side of that, behind the fence, is red maple that was planted along with the red maple that's closer to the 5 trees I propose to remove. At that angled section of the fence, the longest section of the fence, I think there's enough room to plant another maple there that would give shade because of its direction to the area that floods. And then I would, behind the current maple that's there, I could plant something that's, that grows a little smaller. And I don't really have an idea what that could be. I'm certainly open to suggestions. But everything else around the perimeter, there's already a pretty high tree line there. So if it gets close to my property line, it's going to be, I think, stunted ultimately by the higher growth trees.
What I would suggest is that since Conservation Agent Paul Whiteman is going to be writing this and writing up this administrative review permission, that he'll put in the condition about replacements and that you confer with him.
Sure.
And get his approval before moving forward with any replacements.
That would be
He'll
fine.
advise you on what will do well where and what wouldn't, so.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
And I guess I'm taking it from what you're saying, that given how heavily vegetated and wooded that area is, that 2 is probably the most you can get in there?
Of any size, I really don't think there's, if when Bob came out, it's wooded along both sides and the back of the property. And even in the property, we've planted a decent amount of trees. So out in the front yard, maybe, there probably isn't even a decent amount of space out there, and it's certainly not.
It's very heavily wooded area.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bob?
Well, the trees look pretty dead, and so I agree, they ought to come out. Wherever you can plant replacements is always a good thing. Procedurally, why are we looking at an AR?
Because it's.
Well, I think if I could just jump in.
Yep,
Madam
go
Chair,
ahead,
I think
Paul.
this was one that Nikki had for a while. I just became aware of it the other day when Crystal gave it to me. And I didn't get a chance to go out and look at it because I knew it was going to come up and probably Bob would go out. Normally the process, I would have looked at it and said, if there's any question, I'll go and look at it. Sometimes you don't have to. The pictures are pretty clear, but criteria is 3 live trees, 1-to-1 replacement. And I think for dead trees, it's unlimited, but you can, what you're doing here is working with the particulars of this particular site. But I think that's why it came up, because Nikki felt that there were too many trees maybe coming out. And so it just got tabled for a little bit. So I think that's the reason why it came back to you.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
If I may interject, I did talk to Nicole about it, and she recommended I come in to talk to you because she just thought, looking at the aerial pictures, that it looked like I was taking down a lot of trees. But I think unless you go out there, you really don't see how many additional trees are out there into what, I've proposed.
Okay. All right, so Paul, does that work for you, that you'll structure the?
Oh, absolutely, yep.
And
Just,
work with Brian
send an
on
email,
selecting?
then we'll-
Yep, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
send me an email, sir, and then I'll send you a text, and we'll communicate by text. I'll make a site visit, and we'll get it all done.
Sounds good. Where would I find your email address? Is it on the website?
Yep, on the website.
All right, great.
Yep, it
That's
is.
what I'll do.
Okay.
And that involves removal of the invasives as well.
Yes, so he's going to have the removal of the
Yep.
porcelainberry and
Okay.
the tree, and the 2 replacements to be identified as to species and location under advisement of the agent. All right, do you have, ready for a
Do we need to, oh, yeah, never mind.
motion?
We were going to do some kind of a mow path too, were we? In that, or try to reestablish paths somehow, or no?
It's, I don't know that you can do
I know
it
it's
there.
tough, but
Yeah, and it's really for your benefit, for access to the area, to maintain the vigilant war against the invasives that you're going to be fighting from now until forever.
Right.
So you need to be thinking about how you're going to be accessing that easily, because if you miss them coming up in the spring,
Right.
and it gets to be
They
late
win.
summer, it's too late.
Yeah, right.
So do think about that,
Okay.
how you're going to maintain that area. Okay. You have a-
Make a motion that we approve the administrative review. Is this a,
Yeah,
for
administrative.
105 Middle Road?
Gordon second?
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
All right, that's been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Good
time.
luck. All right, Paul, moving on.
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda, the following applicant has submitted a request to extend in order of conditions. The applicant is Judith and Scott Stewart, map 10C, parcel E16, DEP number is SE10-3376. The project is the first floor deck, rinse station, enclosed vegetable, and a generator pad. And I believe there's mitigation, so it doesn't say it on the agenda, but there's some mitigation issues. This one came up because the commission wanted to ask the attorney's representative, who I contacted yesterday. Is Attorney Dalmas online? Or?
Yes, she is. I believe she's
Someone else.
calling in from her
Okay.
car, from what I can
Great.
see.
Okay, great. So she can explain to you, it's routine to ask, the reason for the extension, and so I guess that's what we're going to be doing.
Yep. Hello.
Great. Hello. Thank you so much. Victoria Delmas, Senni and Associates out of Brewster, 15 Cape Lane. I represent Judy and Scott Stevens of this property, 65 Squanto Way. And in looking at the project, I do know there's a COVID extension under the 3-year order of conditions, which was issued in January 2020. I think the extension runs, if I count my days correctly, into April. And Nikki and Crystal helped me confirm that. So I wanted to request the extension for 1 year, given my understanding of the growing seasons, and perhaps you can help clarify the growing seasons interpretation being not 2 seasons, spring, fall per year, but being based on an annual calculation. I wasn't sure of that. So in any event, given the expiry of the order of conditions, the original January 2020, I wanted to get that 1 year extension in so that if indeed it's a three years, that we're well covered in terms of achieving the certificate of compliance within that period.
Okay, so by your calculation, the order issued in January 2020 would normally have expired January 2023, but under the COVID extension, it goes to January 2024, or beyond that? I think
The
it's
date is in, I think it's in April, actually.
April, okay. So the April 2024 is what you're asking for, or what it is currently teed up to expire?
Oh, just the current tee up, just a 1 year extension, because it's really to ensure that there is a site review that had been scheduled with Nikki. I had scheduled with Nikki, and apparently Commissioner Williams, I think, our member Williams was to attend tomorrow at the property, a site review, compliance site review. The plantings are done. There's been invasive species management. The construction is all done. So we wanted to have that site review, and I had scheduled it. The landscaper is teed up to be there too. And I understand the plantings have been flagged, so everything's sort of ready to go. But I wasn't sure, based on Nikki's absence, if that has changed, if that's still on. I wanted to check that.
The information I have is that Assistant Agent Paul Whiteman will be attending that tomorrow.
Right, Madam
Okay.
Chair. I confirmed that with the owner yesterday. You are traveling, so I committed myself, and we'll let her know. I'm sure I can handle it. So I will be there tomorrow,
Okay.
and I did help the owner of the property that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll actually be there. I'll be back.
Okay,
so
good.
I will be there, and I have lined up the landscaper who did the implementation work. She will be there too to answer any questions in terms of
Okay.
running through that review and the conditions set out in the original order and in the amended order. But the request for extension was really because I wanted to just make sure we had that additional 1 year extension in case we need that. And again, this is everything's been done. It's the objective now is to see if we can start taking steps towards the certificate of compliance.
Okay, so this extension would take it to April of 2025?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so the mitigation plantings went in 2022? So the 3-year period would
The
take you to 2025? Is that how I'm calculating this?
There was, there were structural additions, so there was a bit of a delay with the builder. All of the mitigation plantings were completed in November 2021. So if the commission counts the growing season, there's a three growing seasons
I
must
see.
pass before we can.
So 22, 23,
So-
24, and take you to 25. Yep, I see how you're calculating that, and that does make some sense, and I'll tell you that we're always, almost always, generally willing to give extensions to ensure that the mitigation plantings have as much time as possible to make sure that, so before the COC is issued, so. Now, I just was confused as to when this was going to expire, what the expiration date, new one would be, and why you were asking for it now. But I think I've got it. Let me
Yeah.
open it up to
So-
questions from other members here. Oh. No? Okay. Do you have a question?
The date we're looking for now is what?
It'll be extended to April 2025.
So that would be in the middle of the summer, oh, I'm sorry, spring, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
which makes
But-
sense.
May I ask?
Go
a
ahead, Ms.
question?
Damas. Yes, go ahead.
So it's just really for me to understand the commission's interpretation of 3 growing seasons. If the plantings were completed in fall of 2021, is the 3 growing season technically a completion of that? The end of November 2024, the end of that fall 2024 growing season, would that be the completion of the 3-year
No, that would
growing
only,
season
that would only
period?
include 2 full growing seasons because they're going in so late in the year. So the growing season of I am losing track of the years here, but counting backwards, 25, 24, 23. If they went in the fall of November of 22, then the 3 full growing seasons would be 23, 24, 25.
Oh, they went in the fall of 2021.
Oh,
Fall of 21, so it seems to
Very good.
maybe you don't,
you don't really.
21,
Sorry, it
22,
seems to me that through the fall
23
of-
Through the fall of 2024, right. That would be the end of the 3rd growing season.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize, I had the
Okay,
date in my head, 2020, all right, so,
But they're asking, yeah,
But their end date is.
they've already have it through April of next year.
right, but it'll take it till April, the following April, and you will have the data for the 3 full seasons at that point.
And
And
then
beyond.
the timing,
You-
right, the timing to request then the certificate of compliance would be presumably in fall
Yep.
2024. Would that be right?
Yep, anytime after that, yep,
The earliest time.
Okay.
yeah,
So like December 2024
exactly,
would be,
yep.
okay.
Mark your
okay.
calendar.
I just wanted to, yeah, I didn't find a definition of what growing season, how that was defined, and then I called different towns to see how that was being interpreted, and some are taking apparently a horticultural view, so they're counting spring as a season and fall as a season. So there's technically 2 growing seasons per annual calendar, annual period. I wasn't sure how that was being interpreted by the commission.
We haven't been called upon to actually make an interpretation, but we have acted, our practice has been to do 1 growing season per annum, because I think it differs among species, whether they're active in the fall or the spring. So we're going to stick with that
Some of the orders
until we're
say-
told that it's not
Some of the
right.
orders say years.
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah. Some of the orders just say 3 years, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah,
We sort of refine that, but it's a good question.
yeah,
Might be
we have
something to think
not.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah, I looked at the State Wetlands Protection Act and the regs under that, and generally it's 2 growing seasons. But even there, I didn't find, the default is 2 growing seasons, and some towns only require 2 growing seasons. I didn't find any definition of how growing season is technically interpreted, so that's what prompted me to call around to different towns on the Cape. So I do see variances in the approach, both as to 2 years or 3 years, and then as to a horticultural view on interpreting growing season. And the order of conditions that we have does indeed refer to 3 growing seasons, so it's not 3 years. So it was an ambiguity that I appreciate your feedback on.
Okay, well, thank you. It was a good discussion, and it's going to cause us to go back and look at our regulations again and maybe do some further refinements to them. Other questions or comments? No? Bob?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 1-year extension for the order of conditions until December 2024 for 65 Squanto Drive.
Gordon, second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, so that's been approved. Thank you very much, Ms. Damas.
Likewise, thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, Paul. So you've already read the
Legal ad?
Yep, for 498 and 500 Shore Road. So I think we just need to have the motion to continue to September 13th.
I'll make a motion that we continue 498 and 500 Shore Road to September 13th, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Will be continued till next week. All right. Paul, next one.
Yes, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is 11 Kingsbury Way. This is an after-the-fact filing. Applicant is Louis Cafaro, map 140, parcel 17-9, SE10. The agenda says -36. I don't know if that's correct. Does anyone have an updated DEP number?
I just texted.
Oh, well, it says SE-36 anyway.
Yeah, there wasn't
proposed-
a SE number last time I looked.
Okay. Proposed project is to remove Japanese knotweed, and the after-the-fact filing is for a deck and patio previously constructed by the former owner.
All
All right, you're on.
Hi, for the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. That deck and patio were installed somewhere around 2000. So we're talking about a 23-year-old after the fact request. That would amount to about 744 square feet. There had been a step there before, so call it 714. And the proposal is to have about 1,715 square feet of knotweed removal, obviously independent. I'm here for technical questions, and I can hand it over to Wilkinson.
All right, thank you.
Aye,
Yes.
for the record.
Yep.
Ian Peach of Wilkinson, thank you for the recognition. As Thad introduced, we've got a pretty straightforward project here. About 1,700 square feet of knotweed removal, a band of knotweed that is literally growing up through that deck and patio. And we joke, but somewhat seriously, about it migrating to the house if not managed. We're using our typical method for this sensitive location, which is cutting the stalks to 6 to 12 inches and using an injection method into those individual stalks. So hyper-localized, handwork, fastidious, but that's how we find we get the best results. So that's our method. It's a very specific area we'll be working in with easy access from the existing drive and parking. We've selected a specific seed mix that uses both grasses and leverages some flowering herbaceous species that we think will do well in that hydrological context. So we'll be immediately establishing that grass and forb layer. And from there, we've also included a supplemental native woody species list, again, species selected specifically for the context should they be needed. Sometimes knotweed, there's regeneration that's really wonderful. And we see, that maybe you don't need to come in there and disturb existing native plants that are regenerating by putting in new woody species. But we wanted to carry that on the plan as an option once we kind of are able to pick our heads up. And as you know, the timeline for knotweed is substantial, multi-years. We're getting into this for 2-3 years, often even 4 years in some cases before we really feel like we have full eradication. So that's the project here. It's really a knotweed project. There's some very minor porcelainberry that we've carried in the protocol as well. Just should we come across it in the project area, we would manage it to make sure we are setting in motion a more ecological integrity to this property. So that's my presentation, and happy to take any questions about the project.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. So the project is actually coming to us as a after-the-fact permitting, and the knotweed removal aspect of it is proposed as mitigation.
Originally, Mr. Caffiero came to us because he wanted the knotweed removed. He saw it growing up through. As he did some research, he found that the patio and the deck had not been permitted, so we said this is a perfect time. We spent some time working with Nikki and with Paul trying to figure out what was the mitigation back in 2000, what was the requirement. When it came out that the area is more than 2 to 1 that would be mitigated, it meets the current standard, and it just made sense to solidify this patio as.
It does. Do you know when your clients acquired the property?
That was in the early 2000s.
But post-2000?
2001. When
So the deck and the patio were
Yes.
existing at the time. That was what I understood from their son. The issue you've got is that they don't own all the property where the
Correct.
mitigation is proposed to be. Now, I understand that there are conversations and discussions going on with the condominium association that owns the other part of that property. And while correct me if I'm wrong, initial indications are that they're receptive to the idea, but you don't yet have an agreement, and we all know that condominium associations can be notorious for dragging their feet, and
They have an
many
agreement?
processes they have to go through. So I guess my basic question to you is, what happens, and I know there's some urgency because you want to get the first knotweed treatment underway this fall. What if you don't have, they're not on board and haven't signed anything, and you have no rights to go to that property?
There's a signed letter that he's waiting to receive, but he's been assured by the condominium association that the letter's been signed.
Giving permission to enter their
work over the
property?
line.
Okay.
We expect to have it before the SE number.
Okay, so you'll need that before, because we were talking about it yesterday and thinking that it would require, if you didn't get that, you wouldn't have an adequate amount of mitigation for the,
Under the current rules, under the 2000 rules, maybe.
it's closer, but it's still not quite. But, so it would require structuring some sort of alternative mitigation if that in fact didn't happen. But if you're confident that the letter is on its way, then we'll make an assumption for the moment that that's going to happen and hold on finalizing anything until it's in hand.
And everybody from the condo has really expressed that they don't care about this area. I mean, they're up on Cross Street, they're far from here.
Yeah.
So, if somebody wants to take out some knotweed, everybody's been on board with it.
Well, that would be great. Could you tell from, I just have a question, from the files that you were looking at and researching this, that the ZBA application in 2000 that the site plan was developed for, what was that for?
It was for a detached garage. It was going to be located near where the shed is.
Okay. And that was never pursued, ZBA?
That was denied at the
That was
zoning board.
denied, okay. Okay, let me open it up to questions from other commissioners. Bob, Elise? Jump in.
I think with the permission from the neighbors, not many questions to get rid of knotweed is a fabulous thing.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Karen.
Karen.
Yep.
So one of our conditions is that this knotweed will be taken care of in perpetuity. Does that mean that the condo association is going to allow the homeowner to continue to deal with the knotweed forever?
We can make sure that that's in the agreement.
Okay. I think that would be good because otherwise more than half of it isn't managed going forward.
2/3 of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
So procedurally, when we do applications for notice of intent, we have to have the owners of all the properties sign the application. Is that correct, or am I misstating that?
So in this case, we're going to, or Mr. Caffiero will be acquiring a license over that property, giving him the legal right to work on that property, in which case we don't need the signatures of every condominium owner.
Okay. So a license, all right.
Okay.
We had the
All
same
right.
thought. We went through 3 or 4 different methods that we could have used in order to get to this point, and what makes the most sense is a license.
I agree. Question, get you. Karen, did you have anything else at the moment?
No, I just had thought of that today, so I wanted to ask.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to make sure I understood the word perpetuity here. That the idea is that the owner would fund ongoing knotweed removal in this area forever?
I mean, that's what
Yeah.
comes with it. I mean, he
Yeah.
wants to
Okay.
get rid of the knotweed, and it certainly is invading his yard.
It's going to
Okay.
take his house.
So
Yeah.
all right, just to make sure we're all,
Yeah, no, the order will be, will have the usual, usually, because you are planting mitigation plants. So the order will be, as we have been doing lately, requiring that invasives are kept out of that mitigation area in perpetuity as a continuing condition. So the war against knotweed is, perpetual, so.
Yeah.
and that would apply to successive owners of the property?
Yep.
Okay.
So, but in combination
that-
with his property and the property covered by the license of the association, is that all of the knotweed, or is there still remaining knotweed on other
Oh, there's still remaining on other
adjacent?
properties,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, there's somebody to the east, it looks like, who's taking a Roundup style method, which A, doesn't work, and B, just puts more chemicals into the groundwater ultimately. But how will you protect this mitigation area against the remaining knotweed doing what knotweed always does?
Well, if I may, Ian Peach
Yep.
again here.
Go ahead.
So this is not strange to us. It's a context, as you can imagine, with knotweed and some other kind of monoculture-based invasive plants. We have a couple things working in our favor. To the north of this band, there's actually a break for a long stretch there and some intriguing plants. Those are some of the in situ species that I hope to see migrate into our restoration area. And we already potentially may be able to work with other neighbors. There's been a glimmer of that on other bordering lines where people would see the good work and want to take part in it. So basically, it's something we're used to doing, kind of managing that defensible space, the edges, as part of our ongoing management of knotweed, and also the site context, although there is a larger knotweed population in the broader context. As you sort of think about the boundaries, there are some boundaries that aren't as aggressively going to put pressure on our project area.
But in those areas where it will, I mean, our standard language now is to maintain a mow strip along the edge of the mitigation area to provide access. I don't know whether a mow strip makes any sense in this.
No,
in this
the
situation.
hydrology wouldn't be right along certain areas. And really what's going to happen is the regeneration is going to be a tight weave that's going to be, giving us that, that somewhat of that defense. Obviously, as we've mentioned a few times here, the ongoing management and stewardship of it will continue to pop up for a long time, and we'll be staying on top of that. But starting to do some of the heavy lifting for us will be the plants themselves. And if we feel like we need a little bit more help, we do have that plant list that we can leverage a little further should some regeneration not be optimal and we feel like there's pathways for knotweed to get into the project area.
All right, that got our attention as well. The reference to the shrubs, quote, as needed, end quote, and what that means. So
Yeah,
the plant list that you've provided here is not necessarily a supplemental native woody species are not necessarily going in. It's just the native seed mix.
Yeah, so it absolutely is the seed mix, which I articulated does have some species we're excited about: blue vervain, boneset, swamp milkweed, to name a few. The woodies are selected specifically to do well in that area, but in our fairly expansive experience with knotweed, just initially kind of deciding where these plants go, absolutely, just really doesn't make sense. It doesn't get you a better project. It doesn't necessarily work like other IPM2 native plant restorations. One of it is a temporal reason. It's longer working with the knotweed. We want to keep it herbaceous and 4B for longer so we can actually see where the knotweed's coming back and manage it more effectively and more sensitively. But we want to have those on the plan of record so we can work with the process and the agent when we see, there should be some plantings in a couple of these areas that haven't regenerated. But it's important, I think, to be able to leverage some of the seed bank and potentials for the land to regenerate herself, instead of just assuming it's like a canvas that gets cleared and gets a new set of plants. So by doing that, I think we're working with both forces, our ability to plant in and our ability to leverage species in place.
Okay, thank you for that. And it's a first for us, I think, to see something proposed this way. Let me see what my other members think about it. Bob?
Hi, how are you? Yeah, so this patio and deck went in after the fact, and Thad, how many square feet is that? Do you know?
About 715.
About 715 square feet. I know what Ian just explained, that he'd like to apply a seed mix after the invasives are removed. What about, and I understand the concept of applying the seed mix and just waiting to see what regenerates and so forth. It'd be easier to control the knotweed later on. And then maybe put some woody plants in some vacant areas. But how about putting some natives? It's in the 50, and it's in the no disturb zone. So how about planting some natives maybe around the deck area, or in the on the side of the house or something like that?
The deck area, as you can see, is just, it's really, there's not much space between deck and project area. I think I'd be more, if it's important for us to specify that these plants are absolutely going in at a certain number or a certain area, I'd be more likely to locate them on the margins of the project area. But again, I do want to reiterate that, I think having these on the plan, we're even giving container sizes. We're not, we're willing to plan at those sizes. That I just think working with the process of this specific plant as a monoculture is going to be more effective. I mean, we could put some circles and say definitely here. If anything, I'd be more open to saying, a certain number of plants than really specific in picking a specific location.
Okay.
What if, could we structure the order so that we agree in advance on the number and then leave the location of those plants to be determined with consultation with the agent? So that would, and the timing as well, so that they wouldn't go in until just before you're, after you are satisfied, and then with consultation
think that-
business to the location. The only problem with that, of course, is that it doesn't necessarily make, when there's a different agent who's going out for a certificate of compliance, they won't know necessarily where they were supposed to have been located because they're not on the plan. That's the drawback I see to that. I don't really know how to.
What if we
Resolve.
get to the point of removing the knotweed, getting the seed mixed together and growing, and when we're ready to plant, review a plan? Because if some of those shrubs come in from the other side of the ditch and start taking over the area, then not as many plants would be needed or wanted.
Right, so, and that makes sense, but that would, in order to resolve the question of having the agent have the ability to check what's there against an approved plan, it would probably mean at the end of when you're at that point in the process to go with a plan change and then locate on the plan where the agreed locations for anything would be placed. And that way they'd have something.
Because it's my understanding, the hope is some of those shrubs will migrate over
Yep.
while the herbaceous species are
Yep.
taken.
All right, so it'll be a wait and see approach, which is, not easy because people who are like things black and white and want to know things exactly what's going to happen when. But we can structure that kind of provision in the order that says this will happen at a certain point in the future. All right. Good luck.
And you have a question about the certificate of compliance?
I'm sorry,
So
Paul, I
maybe
couldn't
this
hear
is
you.
for
Can you
Chad, but-
repeat that?
I'm sorry. On the certificate of compliance, the only applicants that are going to show up are the ones that are identified in the application. The license can be revoked at any time. So usually the condo documents are recorded in the land court for the most part, but with that, I mean, you said you did some research. How do you bind future owners to keep doing this? Because they could revoke the license at any time. So
So
I'm not sure it's the best way to do it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Could it
biggest
not be
problem
an
is,
irrevocable
Some sense of-
license?
the biggest problem with putting the condominium owners on the responsibility is if there's a divorce between the two parties, then the condo would be obliged. And like I said, they really don't want anything to do with this area. It's the no man's land.
Right, so long as the license is a one-way and doesn't impose any affirmative obligations, but it's irrevocable,
Okay.
that would give the owner of Levin Kingsbury the right to access as long as they need it, regardless of anything else, I would think. Would that work, Paul? He's a better lawyer than I.
You know, I don't know, Jan, I'm not sure you can have a license that's not revocable. I mean, generally speaking, licenses are an entity that can be revoked at any time by the grantor. So that was what, I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to issue a certificate just for these two individuals. if there's a better way, Thad, maybe or you could assure us that the license can't be revoked, to make sure that the commission is concerned that it is in perpetuity. It wouldn't make any sense to do it otherwise, I guess, but maybe we could have a little bit more of a discussion on that. For now, just leave it on the table and just try to figure that out when we get to the certificate of compliance.
What about I have a thought about if we structure the order that said something along the lines that if the license was no longer in effect with the condo association, that the owner of this property would have to come back and offer additional mitigation to make up for the mitigation that was lost.
Sure.
If that were even possible. I mean, as you said, it's a small property, but
And I wouldn't even be so specific. If the license is revoked, then the owner has to come back to rework the ongoing conditions.
okay.
Because obviously they couldn't meet certain obligations, and at that time, the commission can review what are the ramifications of that.
Okay. It'll just be a little drafting challenge. And if you guys are looking to get this done and approved next week,
That'd be great.
I won't be here. So somebody's gonna have to write this up. But I'm sure you guys can handle it.
I think with a provision like that, then we don't have to wait on anything. Just
Yeah,
put some language in there and we're done.
it shouldn't be that complicated. All right, other questions or comments?
One more.
Yep, go ahead.
Is the shed licensed? Sorry.
Permitted? I'd have to look into that, but I think it was there prior to.
All right, then I guess we will continue this to the 13th in anticipation of having a draft order to review at that time. So can we have a motion to that?
Make a motion that we continue 11 Kingsbury Way to September 13th, 2023 for an order of conditions.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen? She must be driving under an underpass. Karen? We'll skip her. I vote aye, so that's sufficient to continue to next week. All right, thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, there she is. Okay, it's unanimous.
So,
Sorry, I had it muted 2 places.
Okay, thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Charlie Horse. Okay, all right, Paul, moving on.
sure. All right, last on the agenda is a discussion. The presentation will be by Gordon Peabody. He is proposing the use of a novel system that hasn't been, as far as I know, approved by DEP, but it's a ballasted choir roll with oyster shells inside, other seashells inside, and it's weighted by the oyster shells and the other seashells. Ted and I talked about this. Is Ted, are you on the line?
Ted is in the room.
Oh, Ted's in the room.
Yep,
Okay.
Can I
although he's going out the
interrupt for
door,
one
so I'm
moment?
not sure what. No, he's here.
Can I interrupt for 1 moment?
Yes,
Could we do the minutes, because then I can get off and watch the following discussion, because it doesn't have to be voted on, because I'm almost to my hotel.
Karen would like us to do the
And I
minutes,
think
approve
you
the
need
minutes,
me,
because she has to
you
vote.
need me
Oh,
for the
okay.
minutes.
oh, right, okay, we do. Let's just do that quickly, because we're about to lose you, so. Paul,
Yeah,
if you don't mind, can we
please.
hold and go to the minutes to be approved were from June 28th? Right, and they are in the Dropbox. And there have been a few comments, and Elise cleared up the confusion about who was here when.
Elise was confusing herself.
Yeah, I was confused too. So, you were not here.
Correct. I was
So it
not.
was Karen, Bob, myself, and Mary. Was Mary? There were only 4 of us at this meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Mary was.
Yeah, Mary was here. Okay. So
I was there.
okay, and that's why we couldn't approve it last week, because not all 4 of us were there.
Correct.
So I'm going to delete the part that says Elise went through the spreadsheet, but I'll say she had previously gone through the spreadsheet.
I think the discussion was that I had gone through it and it was
Yes.
in Dropbox. Not that I led the discussion on it.
Okay. I just cleared that up. Bob, you've put your comments in.
I didn't have anything.
No comments from you. Mary, anything on this?
No.
Okay.
No comment.
Then we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the changes as noted for June 28th, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Abstain.
Bob?
Abstain.
Mary? That's right.
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, so approved. All right, Karen, if we lose you, we'll know because you will disappear from the platform.
I think I'll hang up now, and then you can note I left now, and I'll listen to the discussion at a later time.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, now, Mr. Peabody.
Bye.
Go ahead.
Yep, you.
Didn't want to be too aggressive here.
Thank you.
Show and tell stuff.
Yeah. Looks like my front walkway.
Mr. Peabody, can you just, no conversation. Yeah, that's it.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Gordon Peabody. I work with a small interdisciplinary consulting group in Wellfleet on Cape Cod, and we study and we model natural systems because they have a lot of energy that's already inherent in them. One of the things that's come up recently is the obvious revelation that Chatham's on a climate change interface. And the commissioners carefully sift through all the information coming into them, but I think we need to consider some new ideas. And the reason that I'm here is just to share a crumb of possible good news, besides the fact that I'm only speaking for 5 minutes and not asking for anything, as I wanted to share a system that I developed during a conversation actually with a gentleman who owns the submersible that found that Titanic submersible. He's a very broad-range thinker, and we're on a beach on another part of Cape Cod, and he wants to know, well, what can we use? I said, well, coir. I said, well, the commission's really, and the state they don't like stone. He said, but stone will hold it, so we don't have to put in a bunch of anchors. When you stand on the edge of a beach and the water comes in, you sink. That's hydrostatic pressure, that when the sand is exposed to fluids, it can't really hold together anymore. And when you put in multiple helical anchors to hold these coir in, and they get wet, the hydrostatic pressure isn't going to allow them to continue functioning. The Pacific is populated for one reason, and that's because coconuts float. So coir floats. I don't have to tell the commissioners there's ample photographs in Chatham and I understand that a few years ago, a ferry boat hit a coir roll, probably one of those monsters from Nantucket. But I just was fishing around for different ideas, and one of the I used to be chair of a commission for 5 years, and one of the guiding principles has always been natural systems, natural systems. And at that moment, I'm looking down, there's a bunch of shells on the beach, and I'm, talking to the gentleman, the shells on the beach, and I'm thinking, why don't we just use shells? A lot of towns have problems getting rid of shells, Not that we're saying that's a solution. And so I had the idea of just taking a coir and slicing it down the middle like a hot dog or a sausage, depending on one's taste, and just loading it up with some shells. Now, if you put in the regular shells that we have plenty of, they might be a little abrasive, and we don't want them doing damage. We just want them to be resident. Now, the coir aren't going to get knocked around a lot, and when they do, it's going to be for a short period of time. Tide's only a few hours. But what we don't want is we don't want them wandering. We don't want to have to put people's phone numbers on them to find them, but that would be as a thought, certainly. So the idea that I had was to take a natural material, and we know that DEP does not like stone. They do not like, stone coir, but they've approved a few grudgingly. But what can you say bad about a shell? It's natural. If and when the coir deteriorates, you'll have some shells instead of stones. So whatever you put in, a coastal bank or wherever, you've got to nourish it, obviously. And when you nourish it, you've got to do planting. So the idea, we also work with, living shorelines. I gently approached the gentleman in the booth, and he politely rebuffed me when I asked if I could show this up on the screen. Do you folks have a copy of this?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
good.
we all have copies, yep.
That's certainly some good news. So I'm already almost finished. So I put together this as a exposure to people that don't know what coirs are, or people like me that don't like them, but also to exhibit the fact that you can have a very successful living shoreline if you remember one thing, and that's that diversity is ecological muscle. That resiliency is a sustainable response to environmental stress. So by diversifying your plantings on top of this, I'm not saying we're validating the shell coir, but what I am suggesting is that, and the reason I came here tonight is Chatham is undeniably on the climate change interface at Cape Cod, more than any other town on the Cape. This is an idea that might not fly, but also won't float. And the idea is that, is this something the commission might be interested in experimenting with if we were to come up with something? And it wouldn't mean that we wouldn't also anchor it, because you have to appease all parties. But the basic concept of using a natural system to ballast a coir so it won't float. Remember the Pacific Islands. Remember hydrostatic pressure when you're on the edge of a beach and the water comes up and you sink. And I'm just thinking, maybe it's too simple, but it's also, it kind of feeds into a natural system of using shells, using a natural material to ballast a coir. And on page 7, there's a couple of crude drawings that our intern from Tufts put together for us. But the idea being that you would slice it down the middle, you would pack it with the crumbled shells like you have in that bag, and then you would go ahead and sew it up, and you would then do your nourishment and do your planting. So it goes hand in glove with a living shoreline, but the core of what I'm saying is the core of what I'm saying is just using the shells as ballast.
So, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in already.
No, I'm good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and having this conversation, particularly in advance of actually making a proposal to use this. This is much
That's
better.
not my style.
So how would the shells as ballast compare with using cobblestones, which we have approved several projects. DEP has allowed it and approved it, so we're comfortable with that.
One of those was a project I was involved in, yeah.
Yep.
And I just like the idea of using a natural material. I mean, DEP doesn't need a lot to find something wrong with the project. And I won't say anything to you that I wouldn't say to them, and I have said it. And the idea of if you're using a natural system and natural product, now what are we going to complain about? Ooh, there it is. Thank you. I knew he liked me. If you're using a natural product, now what's the next problem, you know? So that was my thinking. And to be transparent, even though I don't like math, I'm capable of doing it. You would have to do a little balancing and mathematical weight and whatnot for it. But the idea of going onto a beach and first not seeing these floating around like abandoned pirate ships, but also, because remember, the people that are putting these in are very competent professionals, using the screw anchors and everything, and even some that are weighted, or most of them not weighted, wrap them in wire, or they'll last forever. But forever comes a little more quickly in Chatham.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to try and consider some new ideas, a new way of thinking. Thank you.
We're open to that. I guess my immediate concern is that just by picking up and holding that bag that you brought in, and thank you for that, because it reinforced my question, it does not have, it's as a ballast material, it does not have the same weight that a bag of stones would. So would you think that as ballast, it would perform the function of holding the logs in place?
Right. I have to say, our workers didn't want to give me more shells. I asked them to fill the bags so you could get a better sense of weight. We use shells too in all of our planting work because the acidic rain on the shell sacrifices the calcium ion. It makes the groundwater a little less acidic so we can hold more nutrients. It's kind of a natural. And our workers were planting today, and that's all they would give me. So.
But still, I'm just, in comparison, the question is, shells don't have the same weight as an equal volume of stones would, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't.
That would be a data point we would need to understand.
Yeah. I'm not offering a perfect system. I'm offering one that for consideration. And the part of the role of my coming here is that I really respect the commission process. And the Chatham Commission is fairly sharp, to my opinion. You don't miss much. And I enjoy that process, and I need, your support in even pursuing this any further. And obviously, the weight to volume ratio can be determined. These are all things that can be determined, but the idea of using something as simple as a shell that certainly is not in short supply and certainly wouldn't be a black mark on anyone that authorizes it, because when it's over, it's just going to be some shells, which I wouldn't object to on the beach.
Right. All right, let me ask others here for their reaction to the idea.
Well, I mean, on the face of it, yeah, there's nothing on the face of it for me to object to. Is this something that we would have to get a DEP buy-in for, this approach?
Say that one more time.
Would the DEP need to approve this if we were to be in favor?
Yeah, I think they should have they should have a say in everything that happens on the coast.
Yeah, and have you approached them about this?
No.
Okay.
I can't imagine that they would object to shells, but one never knows. We've all been surprised by them before. But the idea is it performing? And as the chair wisely pointed out, what's the performance of this compared to stone? One thing that I would suggest is that the permitting could be a lot easier using shells rather than stone.
Well, as was noted, I think in the beginning days when living shorelines came before us, there was objection to stone of fairly small size, even.
Yeah.
Over time, I think we loosened up on that, and I think traditionally we've been allowing 8-inch stones,
Yeah.
which are, not small.
Right.
And I will point out they are also natural substances as well.
But not on Cape Cod.
Well, some places they are. Some beaches are pretty stony, I think.
Pretty cobbly, yeah.
Cobbly, yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be the right word. So I guess I'm just wanting to make sure this is not a solution looking for a problem, because we do approve routinely what we used to call living shorelines. I don't know what we call them today.
That's the hat that goes on top of them.
Right.
The living shoreline.
Yep.
Yeah, but, well, we approve corals ballasted with cobble.
Yeah.
And it looks like so far, over time, we'll get better idea of how well they perform. But so far, we haven't had an indication that they're not performing.
Yeah.
They haven't
yeah.
blown out yet.
Yeah, so.
I just prefer the natural material, because
No.
that's something that I believe in on Cape Cod. And
Sure.
nothing's more natural than seashells, and what it can do, it can reduce the number of anchorings that you need because of the contributing weight. And that maybe just being on the outer Cape where I am, at the edge of the earth or the beginning, you don't find a lot of stones. So I'm kind of drawn to the idea of natural materials.
Yeah. You don't find them until you go into the water, and then you're
Yeah.
walking all over them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Elise, questions?
Philosophically, I love it. I haven't been on the commission as long as these wonderful people have, so I'm not as familiar with what's been done in the past with stones, but the thought of shells in the water makes a whole lot more sense. Coming from Connecticut, where it was nothing but rock,
Yeah.
I like the thought of shells where shells belong. So philosophically, I think it's great. I think it just needs to be studied a little.
Thank you.
Bob, anything?
I got a couple of questions. Yeah, do the shells break down at all? Do you know, compared to the stone?
I think you would use the shells already broken down.
No, but I mean, do they decompose?
I don't think there'd be a lot of movement. I mean, it takes quite a while for shells to break down, mainly in the presence of acid rain, where they sacrifice calcium ions. So shells that are in a saltwater environment, I would imagine, could last quite a while.
And how available are they? I mean, I tried to get shells to do a walkway, and I had to get there the same day that they were delivered by the truck.
Yeah.
This is a mixture of, not just oyster shells, but there's a mixture of.
Right, right. All the shells come from New Bedford right now, all the ones that you're talking about.
Okay.
But also, there's groups of people that are trying to recycle oyster shells for culture. And they find that a lot of the restaurants don't have any place to get rid of them.
Right.
So because they have to be taken and they have to sit outside for like a year or something before they can be reused. And the idea is that there might be opportunities for people to reuse some of these natural shells that are coming from a lot of sources, as opposed to sending them to landfills.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
sidebar areas that I haven't looked into.
So you're working with this right now? Do you have existing projects underway, current projects?
No, I usually don't like Coir because you have to, most of our projects, coastal banks and Truro, that are very, very steep. And the first thing you have to do for Coir is to excavate. No, I don't like it. And then you put the anchors in, and then you have to nourish it, and then you have to plant it. I tell the people, just nourish it and plant it and spend 2 months in Costa Rica on the money that you would save from putting those in, because all the elements that go into coastal erosion, aren't really going to be in your favor. However, other places on the Cape have a different type of shoreline. A lot of places in Chatham could be quite amenable to using Coir because of the coastal profile. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So following up from that, would you recommend that this approach be used in VE zones or not?
Well, Coirs are not rated for velocity zones. You're not supposed to use them in velocity zones. So that isn't anything that I would recommend.
Okay.
Because they're not able to withstand it.
Well, we've seen what happens when that happens.
Yes, yes. Then they wander. I wanted, as I'm leaving, I'd like to just make a brief comment about the knotweed, that we're also experimenting with a new knotweed system, you want to remember that the rhizome is the brain of the knotweed. It controls the, everything that the knotweed does. And they, have the roots that go underground. And we're experimenting with carbohydrate transition, where you put a black earth mat over them and they cook. And it cooks the rhizomes. You don't have to wait 10 years for that. Within a couple of years, you're good. So I'll send you folks the publication I did on
I'd
that.
love to read that.
Yeah.
We'd be grateful for that.
Somebody else has also written a booklet on if you can't beat 'em, eat 'em, about cooking knotweed. That's not
beat 'em, eat
ever
'em.
going to be my area. So,
I can't imagine what it, thank you so much, Mr.
All right.
Peabody. Ted Kean is here. I wanted to give him a chance
Yes.
to chime in on this.
Cut quickly to the chase, I frankly have no issues with it. Paul had shown me the materials that was handed out. I had questions when I read this because it wasn't clear exactly what's being proposed. Gordon explained a lot of which, a lot of the questions were now answered after his explanation. When I first saw the picture, I didn't know if these are simply being applied to the surface, which didn't
Looks that
frankly
way.
make much sense to me.
it's hard getting
Yeah.
interns that can use it.
But I kind of assumed that they were to be somehow put inside. As has already been mentioned, we do have, experience in using ballasted coir. This is just another example. I think a lot would have to do with where it's being proposed to see if the shell is in some way compatible with that site. Again, I'm sure it's based on the specifics for, an installation. Would each coir be this way, or were you targeting a certain one at the bottom or the top or whatever? Gordon did indicate that in, I assume, most cases, there would still be anchoring, because I didn't think by itself this was just going to keep it there forever, for obvious reasons. The living shoreline component, because as the commission is well aware, we're working with something at Muddy Creek where we're actually using coir, shell, and rib mussels, the mussels being the living component. I didn't know if you were trying to imply, and I do not think that is in any way, that the shell was the living component.
No, I wasn't aware of what you were doing.
Okay, and what you explained, that this would be a coir that would then be presumably planted, and then that would become the living, component, and we've got lots of examples of that. I've not seen the woodland way since the initial kind of installation. If those pictures are accurate, that's a perfect site for this type of an approach of coir and living, envelope on top. So again, long-winded way of saying I don't really have any issue with it. I think the specifics of the site would dictate whether it's an appropriate use of this type of coir or not, perhaps, but why not, basically.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Peabody.
All right, I'll send you folks that booklet
The
on
knotweed,
basics.
I would love to see that. All right. That takes us to any unforeseen items. Mr. Peabody, your shells. Give them back to your interns.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we've been using these in all of our plantings, and I think it can make quite a bit of difference having a natural sort of fertilizer system in place, because we don't use fertilizers.
No? All right, thank you. Just a couple of quick notes for everybody. So, as you may recall, and Bob, you weren't here, but you have heard, followed the discussion after last week's hearing. We continued Strong Island Road and Morris Island Road for orders to October 25th because of the long lead time for the ZBA hearing. And right after we did that, we thought about it and said, ugh, that's a really long time to wait to write an order. So the orders have been drafted, and they are, for lack of a better spot, they're in a folder in the Dropbox for the October 25th hearing. So you can review them there, and if you, Crystal will print you out copies if you'd, anybody who wants a printed copy, and I think Karen would too, Crystal can print them out and make them available. Otherwise, you can find them in the Dropbox under October 25th. And we won't do that anymore. What we'll do is continue it for a couple of weeks, then review the draft order, and then hold the order until after the ZBA hearing. So we will review the orders at least while it's still relatively fresh in our heads. 93 Orleans Road, a draft restoration order following the process we used up until, I think it's been at least a year and a half, maybe more, since we've done one of these. It'll be on the agenda, Crystal and Paul, tell me if I'm wrong, for next week, September 13th. So that is also in the Dropbox under the September 13th hearing date. It's a draft restoration order. We have a restoration plan. Phil Cheney is waiting to get going on that, so needs the approval for the restoration order, which is, as we've done before, modeled on an order of conditions. It has all the specifications and timelines of what has to be done, but it needs to be reviewed and voted on next week. And again, for folks who want to print a copy, Crystal can provide you with that. That's all I've got. And I guess we can take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Gordon, second.
All right, roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen's gone. I vote aye. We're out of here. We're done. Thank you, everybody. Have a good time next week.